Hi, I'm Kyle and welcome to Ask Your Elders. Today's a very special episode. I interviewed Miss Ruth Goldsmith 2 weeks ago, and today, as this video airs on December 14th, is Ruth's 100th birthday. Ruth is still living on her own today. Happy birthday, Ruth. In this episode, she shares her life story of a century of living in New York, growing up in the Bronx, marrying the love of her life, living through World War II, and starting a family, and she even shares a bit about the trials and tribulations of aging. I hope you enjoy this episode. Please be sure to follow along and subscribe for future interviews.
Ruth Goldsmith, and in 2 weeks I will be 100 years old.
That is truly incredible.
Thank
Truly incredible. So if you don't mind, I'd love to start from the beginning. Can you share a little bit about where you were born and maybe what you remember most vividly about the neighborhood and your family life then?
I was born in the Bronx, Prospect Avenue, on a kitchen table by a next-door neighbor who helped my mother. I was the 10th child, the only female. The first 2 boys died in steerage coming here from Budapest. I don't know about the third. It left me with 6 brothers that I remember. The oldest one was 22 years older than me. Therefore, that's all I know. Then I do know that we moved to another place in the Bronx. I think it was called Washington Avenue, but I'm not sure. Well, Bathgate Avenue. I do remember that the bathroom was in the hallway, shared by all the tenants. Rather disgusting while.
So just so I understand, from the beginning first, you were born on a kitchen table. By the neighbor was the midwife, I understand?
Whatever you want to call them.
And so you said that your parents, so some of your siblings were born in Budapest?
No, my siblings were born here. The ones that were born in, coming over in steerage or whatever, or Budapest, they died. I never met them.
So your parents were immigrants?
Budapest, Hungary. And my mother didn't know my father, but her father decided she should get married to this man. He probably has money because he had a buggy and a horse. He was about 7 years older than her. She was about 16. Very Orthodox Jews, extremely Orthodox. I never knew what pork was or shellfish. I knew you'd never eat dairy with meat. You'll get sick. You have separate utensils, separate dishes. Even for the holidays, separate dishes, because they can't touch.
So you grew up Orthodox?
Yeah, but I did know this. No Yiddish was spoken at home because my mother said, we're in America, we speak English. She spoke 3 languages. In Budapest, women were not allowed to be educated. But her father taught at an yeshiva. She sat outside the door, listened, and learned. She became a very, very intelligent lady. She spoke 3 languages. Not my father. He was a hard worker. But he had red hair and a red beard and blue eyes. And he never told them he was a Jew. So he always worked.
This was your father?
So he always worked. No matter what it was, he worked.
So you say that because at the time, so I guess you're describing it as he was passing as a non-Jew in that time? Is that what you mean?
He didn't say what he was.
And that was on purpose?
He knew that if he said he was a Jew, he'd be fired. They would never hire him.
Wow.
It was a bad, and it still is.
So this was your mother and your father got married in Budapest. Do you know the reason why they decided to move to the
Yes.
United States?
Her father said I don't know what they were called, but the Russians were coming and they would demolish everything. We have to get out of here. We have to find a place to live. They don't want Jews. And he said, I think he's a nice man. I think you should marry him. Now, he was very, very Orthodox. He was born a very Orthodox Jew. So when they got off the boat in America, at Ellis Island, Jewish women had to wear a wig. because no man should look at them. She got off, this young woman, who by then had probably, by the age of 20, had already had four or three births, I'm not sure. You know, they hand down the story. So she ripped off this wig, threw it on the ground, and he said to her, "What are you doing?" "I'm in America. I have beautiful hair. I'm not wearing it." How he didn't leave her, nobody knows. He adored her.
Wow. So your mother was already
Very modern, very ahead.
very modern.
So when she would walk the streets in Harlem, the women would yell out of the window, "Wilde Haya," meaning Wild Annie, because she wouldn't wear the wig, and she would walk with an attitude.
Wow. So I'm sure, as I asked you later on, I'm sure your mother was very impressionable on you and how you developed your personality and outlook on life, I'm sure.
We lived in a neighborhood, very poor, in South Bronx. But every single weekend, she took me down to 2nd Avenue to the Yiddish theater. She wanted me to have culture. None of the other women did that. Among my friends, they used to say, "What do you do down there?" I said, "You go to see a show. They speak Yiddish, which I don't understand too much, but it's very sad. Jews cry." Well, their life has been hard. And she believed also that the other mothers didn't, that when you come home from school, you have a glass of milk. She baked her breads, her cakes, I never went into a store to buy, so I don't know. I didn't know about packaged. And she said, "And now you go to the library. You must read." The other women didn't do that. So I proceeded to skip grades in school.
Wow. So, okay, you mentioned that when you were born, you were the 10th childbirth that your mom, you're number 10 in the family.
I didn't know that till I looked at a birth certificate and said, she was questioned, "Oh, that's my 10th. I only knew 6 brothers and me. I figured I was the 7th.
Wow.
And then I questioned one of my brothers. He said, "We don't talk about it." They don't talk about anything. It's ridiculous. Everything is hidden.
But so you grew up, I guess, number 7 there were 6 older brothers all growing up. So what was that like being the only daughter in the house?
Well, my mother didn't have much time. She was baking, cooking. As a matter of fact, when I was born, she wrapped me in a blanket and put me in a basket right by the stove. And my brother Al, whom I adored, came home. He said, "Oh, Mama, not again." It's different. It's a maidel. That means it's a girl. But the first brother, he was getting married already, you know, and his first daughter, I assumed was my sister because I became an aunt at 3.5. I adored her, but she died young.
Oh,
My
did
nieces
she?
and nephews are all dying or they're ill because they inherited terrible things from my parents and my brothers. Why I'm here, Lyle, no doctor knows. He said my mother was dead at 54, my father about in his early 40s. My first brother made it to 54, the next one made it to 52, and down the line.
Wow.
One brother fought like crazy. He made it to 72. But you want to know something? I wouldn't want to be in the way he was, bent over, sick, pain. No, die, go.
Yeah. So, in other words, in your family, you're a bit of an anomaly.
Yes. And the doctors said they don't know the answer. One doctor said to me, the only reason I met him, I don't like doctors, I don't go to doctors. I think that's one of the reasons I live long, because they tell you something's wrong and you go crazy. But what happened is I got a job, I'll tell you about that, but I got a job in Bloomingdale's in an office. And I heard everybody talking. I said, "You all have doctors? Don't you?" "Yeah, not really." "Well, there's a very nice doctor on Park Avenue." I went to him, and I'm a fashionista. I love clothes. And he said, "You look very good. What do you want me to tell you?" I said, I'm here because I'm paying you and you're the doctor. He said, okay. When you fill up your plate with food, eat half. He was this wide. And he said, and never drive. I said, a car? I said, I'm going to question you on that, but you don't have to worry. He said, why? I said, I don't know how to drive. I didn't drive till I was 60.
No kidding.
Why should I drive? My finger was up for a taxi all over New York. I
Right.
adore New York City. I adore it. Trees are nice. Flowers are nice. I can live without them.
Okay, you just talked about so many things that I want to get to. But I first, just before we move on from growing up, so you shared that, okay, you're the youngest daughter, 6 older brothers. Brothers much older, some closer in age. You mentioned that your mother would take you to the Yiddish theater. So can you describe a little bit about what was the makeup of your neighborhood in the South Bronx? Was it other families from similar backgrounds? Can you describe
It was all white, 95% Jewish. Most of the women were much, much younger than my mother. My friends had much younger mothers because she had late life, never expecting it. And I will admit that for a while I used to say, why is my mama so much older? And I had one particular very close friend who managed to skip grades like me, so I stayed with her. And her mother had her at 16. And one day she rang the bell in my apartment, and my brother opened the door, and she said, I'm looking for my daughter. I said, your daughter? She was wearing a red fox jacket. I have very good memory. And my brother said, who's your daughter? Gloria, your sister's friend. That's your daughter. She was 16 when she gave birth to her. They ended up living in a boarding house. 1 room, 3 girls, and the mother. Because the mother threw Louis out. Louis came back by 5 times. And my childhood was ordinary. I thought that everybody lived like that.
Were you playing out in the street often? Was it mostly in the apartment? How were you?
No, mostly in the street.
Yeah?
You stayed in the street. You jumped rope. You didn't have toys. And when my mother died, one of my brothers went out and bought me a pair of skates. You wouldn't understand it had a key. The key would lengthen the skate, or make it shorter according to how your foot grew. I wore those till my shoe was over the side.
So you loved skating?
But I was a wonderful skater, up and down hills, fantastic.
So is there you mentioned you jump rope, any other specific memories about the games or the songs going on at that time period when you were growing up in the street, hanging with friends?
Well, I only became aware of music because, you didn't have television. We had a radio. But I got to the age of about 12 or 13, and Frank Sinatra came along. And I said, oh, that's a voice. That is a voice. So in order to know what he was singing, you would buy these little things. You'd go into a music store, and they tell you the words. And you would walk along singing. I have terrible voice, by the way. Terrible. I can't sing. And now it's a hoarse voice due to age. I blame it on age. Everybody said you should have it checked out. You never had a voice like that. Something is wrong. You know what, Lyle? I don't want to know. Because even if they tell me, I'm not going to do anything about it. Why would I do anything about it?
So just so I have the right timeline, you're 10 years old is 1935. So
the last month of 35.
The last month of 1935. Do you remember or have memories about living during the Depression?
No, because I ate potato soup, potato sandwiches, chicken once a week, and then my mother would go to a fish place and buy live fish. She believed chicken should be alive, kill it in front of her by a rabbi, and She'd bring home the fish, huge. And I remember she put it in the bathtub with water and said to my brother Bill, when I'm ready, you'll chop the head off.
So you ate as live as it got, right up to the freshest food.
Chickens the same way. They were still warm when she brought them home.
So was every meal cooked at home in your home growing up? In other words, would you buy food out of the home to eat, or was every meal home cooked?
Oh, home cooked. Who had? No, you could. First of all, my mother wouldn't go to a restaurant because she felt it wasn't kosher. They don't mix dairy and meat. And I read an article just recently. You shouldn't mix dairy and meat. Not good for your digestion. I said, leave it to the Jews. So we were never hungry. If you came home from school, you had a potato pancake on bread that she made, or challah that she made, and you ate.
It's amazing.
I never gained weight.
Really? Would you describe your childhood as joyful?
While my mother was alive, yeah. I found her when she had her stroke. I'm the one who found her and went screaming down the hallway. My mom is sick. My mom is sick. They called an ambulance, and you're not going to believe this. She could no longer talk, and she was turning her head. And as they were taking her in, she lifted her head. I'll see it in front of me the rest of my life, and turned to the woman, I'll tell you about her, that I ended up living with eventually, and said, take care of my kind. And I looked. It meant take care of my child.
Wow.
She knew it was over.
Wow. How old were you when that?
13.
You were 13 years old.
My father died when I was 5.
Okay. Do you remember living with your father, or were you a bit too young to have memories of your father?
I have a memory of sitting on a curb in front of my building, and this man came along. He had a big belly, and it was reddish around here. And he came over and he lifted me up, and I called him Papa. And then the next thing I remember, it was Passover, and he had eaten a lot. My mother baked and cooked and cooked, and he went into the bedroom. There were French doors in there, and he lay down. And the next thing I knew, my mother came in and she was screaming, my man, my man. I didn't understand. I was just 5. But he was dead.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Stroke, heart attack, I don't know.
Because you were so much younger, did you have any of your siblings, were any of your brothers close in age to you, or did you essentially grow up
The youngest one was 9 years older than me.
Okay. So you really almost lived as more or less an only child in the home with your mother?
Well, I lived with my brothers who brought in their wives on holidays. My mother cooked. She died too young because she... And second down brother, he brought his wife. And she saw a little girl sitting on the floor. And she turned to him and said, you have a daughter? He said, what are you talking about? He said, that's my sister. He said, that's your sister? What are you, 18 or 19 years? That's your sister?
So there was a huge gap. At the time, very uncommon, I imagine. Wow. So did you, both your parents, and it sounds like you grew up Orthodox, was the faith community central to your social life growing up?
The community was 99% Jewish.
Okay.
Everybody was the same. Nobody had money. It didn't matter. So you felt equal. As you get older, boarding houses came up. And it became, mostly Spanish people moved in to these, but it was a safe neighborhood. I remember going on the subway late at night. You never heard the word mugging. I didn't even know there was such a word. You rode on the subway all the time. You never thought about it. I was not Orthodox in any way, except that my mother did go to the temple, and they had no air conditioning, and women sat separately, high up, and my brothers had to go in and put smelling salts because she was always. But was a pretty good child until she passed away.
Do you mind sharing kind of what happened after that? Because
Well,
she looked at a woman who ended up becoming the person you stayed with the day that she had the stroke.
I'll tell you about her. The day of the funeral, we came home. My friend Charlotte's mother, Mrs. Eisenberg, because you didn't call my first name, helped me out of the car. And I walked up the 3 flights, and my brother said, no, you don't go into your apartment, you go next door. Why? Because that's where the food is. There's nothing there. Mama is gone. I took it like a lady. I walked in and immediately started to throw up. I said, there's a terrible odor here. My brother said, it's called bacon. I said, what is that? And he said, comes from a pig. So I started to throw up again. I said, Mama won't like it. He said, Mama is dead. Mama is gone. My brothers were very macho men. They were brought up on the street. They weren't cool. This is the way they were brought up. And then I realized, okay, I have no choice.
But that was going to become your permanent new home?
Well, I was told I lived with 2 brothers. And they looked at me and they eloped. I didn't know. But they didn't want to take care of a 13-year-old girl. They didn't know what to do. And I would always sit and read or cry. To me, my life was over. And they eloped, not telling me. But in the building that I lived, on the 3rd floor, I was on the 2nd, lived a young guy, about 16. His name was Charlie. Charlie was living with his father, who married the 2nd woman, her name was Florence. She was a horrible stepmother. He and I became very, very good friends. We would talk, we would walk. And one day he said to me, I met a young guy, and he's so nice, and he's very handsome. And I said, where did you meet? He said, in a coffee shop. And I said, how old is he? He said, oh, about 15 and a half. And I told him to come around. He lives alone with his mother, and I have a feeling he's very poor. So one day, I heard a siren. Up the block, I see a bike. Nobody had a toy. What is that? It's a bike. And he came and he stopped, and I said, God, he must be rich. Not realizing the bike was tied together with rope.
Oh my gosh.
He was a very good athlete. And he got off the bike, and I remember my girlfriend going, he's gorgeous. And my girlfriend says, oh my God, who is he? He introduced himself, and we got to talking, and immediately we became very good friends, immediately. I didn't know that he worked around the corner in a grocery store called Cronish. He would get there like 4:35 in the morning and deliver rolls, milk, and it's a custom. He waited for a nickel tip. And one day my mother said to me before she died, I have to tell you something. I can no longer carry the heavy bundles from the market. It's getting harder and harder. I may have to start buying some things in a grocery store. She said, one opened up by the name of Cronish. Fine, it's okay. But I'm going to ask a favor of you. If I ever get a nickel to tip a young man that makes deliveries, I want you to smile. It was my husband. She picked out my husband.
The 15-year-old boy with the bike who was delivering the milk and the bread.
She said, I read his face because she read tea leaves for everybody in the neighborhood.
No kidding.
She was a brilliant woman. And she read his face. I said, Mama, you never read a face, but I read his. I like it. Someday, you're going to meet him. I want you to smile. I said, okay. I didn't put 2 and 2 together until he came on that bike. Oh my God.
That's incredible.
And then my brothers left, and I'd come home to that empty, stuffy apartment. No more smelling of cooking and baking. Disgusting. I was scared that behind every chair my mama was. And I heard this woman say to her daughter, who was 3 months younger than me, her name was Rose. She was a very nice young girl. I'm going to have a delivery made. I have some deposit bottles. I'm going to tip the young man. I want you to smile. Wait a minute. What the heck is that? That's what my mama said. I'm going to tell you something. When I got married, she was my maid of honor, that girl. When we left the wedding, it was during the war, blackout shades, you had to be out of there in the middle of the night. She almost had a breakdown, screaming, he was meant for me, he was meant for me, he was meant for me. Screaming.
You're not kidding. Wow. But so that I'm connecting the dots myself, your mother, while she was alive, you're 12 years old, she's mentioning, okay, you need to make a good impression. I sense something from this young man, the delivery boy. You then become friends, this is now after your mother passed, become friends with another young man who knows this delivery boy. So he comes down on a bike, the delivery boy. You hadn't seen a bike before, hadn't been acquainted really with somebody who owned a bike.
Oh my God.
So you're impressed immediately.
Very impressed. And then he said, would you like to sit on the handlebar? I was scared out of my mind. But I wasn't going to say no. I'm not that stupid. I was 13, I was not that stupid. And he took me fast around the neighborhood. There were, thank God, many cars. Nobody had money. But I tell you, I was scared. But then I had confidence in him, so, you know.
So was there immediate sparks between the two of you, or did he have any idea of how you felt about him upon that first meeting? Did you
No, he didn't know, but he knew from this other boy, Charles, you got to meet Ruth. Ruth is special. So he looked forward to meeting Ruth. And we were never apart.
Really? So did you start out as friends from there, or was it immediate that you started dating?
No, you didn't date, you know. I was 13. And I didn't have any money, so I knew, you know. But when he one day said to me, a knish store, a potato knish store opened up. The lady makes it in the back. Would you like to share one? They were a nickel. I said, oh my God, get out of the cold and get into a warm place. And I love to eat. I still do. Nobody believes it, but I love to eat. And we would sit there for hours. The old lady got to know us. We would cut the knish in half and put a little pepper on, and we ate because I had no place to go.
But it would just be the two of you.
But it was just the two
spending
of us.
time at the knish
constantly.
place. Wow. So how much after your mother passed to the point where you met him through your friend Charlie, how much time had passed? Was it almost immediate after your mother had passed that you then...
I met him 2 weeks after my mom died.
Wow. So can you, reflecting back, how important was meeting him officially and then, you know, developing that friendship for you dealing with the loss of your mother?
Well, when you looked at him, you said, oh my God, black wavy hair, blue eyes, big blue eyes. It spoke so beautifully, and he was the only boy who worked. 4:30 in the morning, he was on that, no gloves, no scarf, no hat, emptying, freezing things into that grocery.
Wow. So you said first it was friends, you were so young. When did the friendship turn into...
By the time I was, it took me a little while to grow up. I say by the time I was 16, I said, oh, I can't live without this. He came every night of my life, every night, to walk with me, to talk to me, never telling me that he was very poor. He and his mother were practically starving. His father dropped dead at his feet when he was 14. He bought a big coat with a lot of pockets so he could steal food. Today he would have been a juvenile.
Wow.
He stole food.
But you didn't know about any of these struggles that he was holding on to?
I assumed he had a mother and a father to me. He never said, he said, I listened to you. He said, what was I going to tell you? Make
Wow.
it worse?
So when you're 16, you kind of, all of a sudden, this friend became somebody you
Anyway,
wanted
what
to spend
happened
your
to
life with.
Charlie, living in the same building, I was in the hallway one day where his stepmother was there, and she says to me, you know, you're a bitch. I stood there, I said, what? I'm sorry. You know that Charlie likes you. He brings around somebody else and you like him. I don't know what she's talking about. And she said, no, you're a bitch.
What?
Her name was Florence, I remember. I see her sitting there, and I felt so bad because I didn't know what to say. I knew bitch was a bad word. You're too young, you don't understand.
Of course, of course. Did you ever bring that up to Charlie that happened, or no?
No, but Charlie left. It was sad. And one day, he came around, he said, Ruth, I met a girl. I said, I'm so glad, Charlie. And he said, if she asks you, I want you to lie. I said, about what? Tell her I went to college. I said, will she really ask me that? He said, just in case. She was blonde and blue-eyed, I remember. And I was used to dark hair and dark eyes because we were Jews. And she did ask. Lyle, I had to say it. I said, well, as far as I know, he told me he was going to go to college. That's all I said.
So you could tell that he was trying to hide something or put on a persona that wasn't really him.
He wanted to have some place. He wanted to marry. He wanted to have a place to go.
Yeah.
I will tell you this. About 20 years ago, my phone rang, and he said, I want you to hear this.
It was Charlie?
He lived in Florida, and I put the phone in there, and the song was When the Deep Purple Shines, or something like that. It was a very popular song when we were teenagers. He said, do you remember? And it did break my heart. I said, yes, Charlie, I do. He did all right. How they accepted him in the police force, I don't know, because he stole like crazy. He was from the streets. How he got away with it, I don't know. I'm waiting to think, eventually, when I went to work in Bloomingdale, he patrolled that area.
Charlie did?
It's a very small world, Lyle.
Very small.
Very small. We're really together. We don't realize it.
Wow. So I want to kind of take this moment to now transition to, you realize that you want to marry.
Oh, we knew that we would get married.
You knew you were going to get
someday.
married. So now can you talk about what was the courtship stage like with you and your future husband at the time?
The war had started.
Okay. So what year do you remember?
It must have been well, I met him in 1939, so it must have been 1941 or something.
Okay.
41 or 42. And little by little, the young men I knew were gone. They were drafted. And I questioned him one day, and he said, I don't know, maybe because I'm alone with my mother and she has nobody else, and, you know. And I said to him, what do you mean you're alone with your mother? Where's your father? And that's what I found out.
So up till then, that's when you realized his whole family backstory and dynamic.
Then I knew, oh, something's wrong here. He's very poor, and he has no father. But I never berated him or anything. He was going through his own trauma. One night, he came every night of his life to see me. Sometimes we sat in the hallway because we were cold. And one night he didn't show up. I panicked. I remembered he told me where he lived. I also remembered that he said there was a phone underneath the stairwell in the building. I thought it must be a very rich building. It was a tenement. And I called that number, and I asked him to call the woman from the third or fourth floor. Her name is Mrs. Goldsmith. She came down and she said, hello. And she started to cry hysterically. I thought, he's dead. He's dead. That must be it. I said, please, what's happening? The police came, the police came. What police? They had uniforms. Policeman uniform? No. Where'd they come? To my door, they're going to arrest him. Who? Ralph. Why would they arrest him? She said, can you come over? I said, tell me exactly where you are. I thought I was poor. When I came over, I climbed the steps. What was originally two apartments, they broke. So this had one tiny room the size of my bathroom where she slept. Then there was a so-called living room or something, and there was a cot. I said, this is where you live? He said, yeah. Why'd they come? Said, I don't know. They said Army. I said, Army? Now you got to remember, I'm not even 17. I said, we have to find what they call a recruiting system place. I have no money for a cab or anything, so we walked, and I found it. I walked in, and I told them, and they said, oh, he's AWOL. What is that? He's AWOL. I said, away without order of leave or something. I said, what are you talking about? They said, he was supposed to appear at Penn Station, and he never appeared. Where is he? I said, you tell me. I don't know, he's 18, I don't know where he is. So he finally did end up at Penn Station. He went there late. He said he tried to die first. He said he left his mother and me. So we swallowed about 18 aspirins.
Wow.
He was a very strong, healthy young man, a real athlete. It didn't affect him.
So, wait a minute. That's a key detail. You said that what did he try to do? Sorry, he...
Trying not to go into the Army.
Ah, okay. So he was trying, you said he took the aspirins to try to avoid being recruited.
When he finally got there, they said, you're late. He said, I know. He left with a toothbrush, underwear, and nothing else.
Wow.
They were very poor. And the next thing, they never let him out. He wrote a letter, which I gave to Lori, apologizing. He knows it was wrong, and he was sorry that he didn't tell me the truth. But he said, why burden you with that? You had enough. I felt very hurt. And my brothers said, he's no good. He's a liar. And he's poor. She can't go with him. And one brother said, there's other fish in the sea. I said, but I don't go fishing. And they said, well, you have to get over it. I said, get over it? Get over what?
You knew you were in love at that point already.
Oh, yes. I knew how terribly I missed him. So I missed him. And I got the first letter. He never came home on leave. They sent him immediately overseas.
Really?
First they sent him to Camp Shelby in Mississippi in July. He hated the heat.
During this entire time, were you corresponding via letters?
He wrote to me. I finally knew what to write. And he was apologizing. I said, I don't know. I don't know. He's a liar. And I didn't know what to do. But I kept writing back and forth. And I said, you know what? You got to forgive. Everybody deserves another chance. He never came home. They sent him overseas.
Do you know where he was sent overseas specifically?
England.
England, okay.
And it was 18. And the minute he appeared in England, they sent him to what they call the First Army, First Division. The First Army is the army that started in the United States hundreds of years ago. They're seasoned veterans. In comes this young Jewish boy. They never met a Jew. They didn't even know. I'll tell you a story about that. And he lines up a row of officers. One was a 6'4", most exquisite guy I've ever met in my life. He said to him, you, from the Bronx? Get over on my team. I'm from the Bronx too. Stroke of luck. To the day that Don Wilson died, he was our dear friend.
Really?
On the invasion, he didn't know how to swim. He got off the boat, the plane, and he waded across, never got hit. Ralph got hit immediately.
Wait a minute, on the invasion, are you talking about D-Day? Ralph was part of the D-Day invasion?
Third man off the plank. It was hit in his helmet, and the shrapnel ripped open his face. Only 12 men lived. I know Saving Private Ryan says 15. Ralph said 12. And he knew he was bleeding, and he knew that his saliva was pouring out. His friend Don crawled over to him and said, "What can I do for you? What can I do for you?" And he said, "In my pocket, there's chocolate. It may be the last thing I ever eat. Shove it in my mouth."
This is what Ralph said to him?
He should have been a comedian. Don never forgot it. But before Don yelling, "Run, stop holding on to that other guy. But he'll die, he'll die." And the guy said to him, "No, I won't, Ralph. I'll bury myself in the water, and you come back when the war's over and take me out." That boy was 19 or 20. He had already been through the African campaign. His name, I think, was Norman. And he said, "Don, I can't drop him, he'll die." And he said, "Then you will die too."
So your husband was immediately sent out to England. He participated in the D-Day invasion. He was struck.
Immediately.
He survived it.
You know how he survived?
No, how did he survive?
The ocean came in, pulled out the bodies, and the ocean turned red. There's only 12 men that lived. Some marched on, but these 4 he rescued. Someday, if you want to Google him, you'll hear the whole story. It's a 3-hour story. He was interviewed. It's in the Library of Congress and the archives in London. And he said, 2 days later, he sees a little boat with 2 sailors. "Why don't the Panzer Division kill them?" And he said, "They're playing with them. They want to see what they'll do." He zigzagged across the beach. Matter of fact, I'm going to show you the sand from Omaha Beach. And he jumped in the boat and said, "Move, move." And they said, "Who are you?" He said, "I'm telling you, move, you're going to be shot at." Sure enough, they got to the big ocean liner, and he climbed up the ladder, and the guns were on him. "Who is he?" And he raised it, he said, "American." The first one who greeted him was a plastic surgeon. He looked at a young man. "I am the best in Boston there is. When I get through with you, nobody will ever know that I stitched you up."
And this happened to be somebody who was serving in the military that just so happened to be a plastic surgeon? No kidding.
On this big, I think it was called the Tuscaloosa. It looked like a dimple.
Wow.
Not when I first saw him. I mean, it was every color you could imagine.
Wow.
But it looked like he did a great job on him.
Wow. Can you share a little bit about what that experience was like for you, communicating via letters, not really knowing exactly what was going on?
I'll tell you what happened. I knew I was heading for a nervous breakdown. I knew. You know, at 16. And I was close to 17, and I said, something's wrong with me. I cry too much. I don't talk to people. I hallucinate. Something's wrong. I looked it up, and it said Jewish Welfare Board in Manhattan. I didn't tell the woman I was living with because she's going to tell my brothers. And I went down there. The man was so nice. He said, "You're a very young girl, and you're very intelligent. You should have care. I'm going to send you to somebody. She's on Park Avenue." Oh my God, from the South Bronx. And when I walked in, first of all, it was 2 doors. One was for maids, and one, I had never seen. I lived in a tenement. And I'm saying, I don't know which door to knock on. She invited me in. Her name was Dr. Berg. She wore a bun, Nazi boots up to here. She said she was German. I said, "Oh my God." She said, "But it's okay. Is it okay with you?" I said, "Yeah." And she's talking, "You're a very nice young lady. Can you afford $5 a week?" I said, "I'll go without lunch. I've got to get better." I went to for almost 3 years.
Really?
When she told me to go, that I was fine, I said, "No, I'm not. Don't ever let me go. I have to have somebody. I have to talk to somebody." And She said, I'm going to leave you with a certain thing I want you to remember. You function in this world better than the so-called people who think they're normal and they're not. You're very normal. You're bright. You'll go places. It's up to you now. I said, I can't. She said, no, you'll make it. The only problem was, during that time, how this woman knew, she told one of my brothers, who said to me, you can't do that. Why? You're embarrassing your brothers. We're macho men, and nobody needs care in this family.
I was just, honestly, when you mentioned that you knew and sought it out help, that seems very modern for the time period, right?
Yes.
So did you
My
have
own
to...
son, who's going to be 78, says, how did you know that? I just do. That I'm not like other people. And
Did you have to keep it hidden from people for a while?
all the time, until my brother Bill, may he rest in peace. I loved him, but he said, you can't do it. You're not embarrassing this family. We're macho men, and we don't go for help. I said, okay. And I did it anyway.
Good for you. Because it sounds like it really did have a huge impact on your life.
You know, I'm going to tell you something. When I gave birth to my son, in those days they didn't know about postpartum. There was no such thing. I knew something was happening to me again. He was an exquisite baby, sitting on the living room floor. I had no visitors. It was him and me, 24/7. I spoke to him, I sang to him, I adored him. He was very fat, and very, very fat. One doctor said, you'll have to stop feeding him, so I never went back to that doctor. Anyway, and I'm looking at him, I said, I'm going to kill him. I know it. I know it. I wrapped him up in a blanket, 6 months old, got on the subway and went to her. I knocked on her door. What are you doing here?
To Dr. Berg.
I said, take him. I'm going to kill him. They didn't know about postpartum, but she said, you're not going to kill him. Yes, I am. Look how clean he is and how well dressed he is, and I'm beautiful, and he's very well fed. And I said, you don't understand. I'm not right again. She said, that's what she said. What did I quote to you? You function in this world better than so-called people say, oh, I'm normal. They're not. You're normal. She said, wrap him up. He's adorable. Go home. I never told Ralph. Never do.
Before we jump to kind of motherhood, just so I understand, you're corresponding via letters. Ralph is in the war. He goes through D-Day. During this time period, first of all, how long was he deployed for? What was the time period between when he joined the Army and then when he came back to the States?
About 2.5 years.
2.5 years.
You would know, but they called it V-mail. It was like tissue paper. They would write letters, and somebody would censor it, cross it out. But I knew my Ralph, and I could detect that he was going to come home, even though the war was on. He was a very bright young man. And one day it said something about somebody's going to visit me and his mother. He's got a lot to tell you. It was an older man who was a real veteran.
So this was like 1943, about 2 years into Ralph's service?
It was like already 1944.
Okay.
He knocked at the door on Kelly Street, and there was this man, and he came in. He said, first of all, I adore that young man. Secondly, he's coming home. Believe me, he will talk himself into coming home. That's all I'm going to tell you. I thanked him, and I found out later that Ralph went to the hospital. He was 9 months in the hospital because he got shot 2 more times.
He got shot 2 more times?
And he claimed he was nuts. So they put him in a padded room. He said, they gave me the best meals in the world, and I acted crazy. And he said, he was about 20 or 21 years old. About 20 years. And he said, I'm not staying in this army anymore. They're going to send me back a fourth time. I'm going to get killed. So we went before this colonel, a doctor, who said to him, look, we know you're acting. You've got to go back. You're a veteran. He said, I'm 20 years old. Yeah, but you're a veteran. He said, I'll tell you what, Colonel, I'll go back. But you walk in front of me on the front line, and I carry the gun. He stamped him home. Stamped him home.
Wow. Wow.
I had quite a guy. They don't make him like that anymore.
During the 2 years that he was deployed, what was New York like? And what, as a woman, was the war effort in full?
Oh.
Can you describe a little bit of what that was like?
Patriotism was unbelievable. Everybody was on President Roosevelt's side. We should be at the war. This is terrible. Why did we wait so long? It was unbelievable. I sold in a Kresge's, it was called. It was like a Woolworth.
Okay.
War stamps. I went to get blood, and she said, you're underweight. I said, but I want to get blood. And I was very adamant, and she took it. Of course, I was very deceived. They gave me orange juice and a cookie, I remember. And she said, that's very nice of you. I said, no, I want to. And I sold these war stamps, but you would think that there was no war. People walked around, they went to stores, they shopped, they went to movies. It was incredible. The boys were fighting and dying like crazy. And this country, now this can't exist anymore because they could be here in 4 minutes, you know.
But so New York was really humming with patriotism at the time?
Oh my God, overwhelming. Everybody was for the war. Everybody was for the war.
And at this point, you're a little bit older, so maybe were you able to witness the change from the Depression era to now full everybody's working towards a war?
Yeah, well, I never knew about the Depression because I ate. My mother baked bread. She baked challah. She had potatoes all the time, soups. If she managed to buy some fruit and it going bad, she made a fruit soup. I don't know if we had meat too much, but, oh, we did have something. Marrow bones.
Marrow bones.
Today, if you have a bone soup, you're very healthy. My mother would say to the butcher, it's for the cat. We didn't have a cat, because she was embarrassed. To this day, I cook marrow bones because I know it's healthy. And then my son said, ugh, but I gave it to Lori. She said, that's delicious. Marrow is very healthy. And you're supposed to cook it for hours. And you put vegetables, potatoes, you know, and it makes a very hearty soup. I mean, my mother made her own noodles, I don't, you know. But one day, about 4 years ago, I read that this famous restaurant in New York, that'll tell you about that, was selling roasted marrow bones for $25. My brother got it free. The first package I bought was $1.90. Today I spend $8 on a package of bones because they're smart. They know people are buying it.
Your mother was very ahead of her time, it sounds like.
Very, very advanced. And my father always worked. My brother Bill said when he worked at the, I think, Brooklyn Navy Yard, he said, I would bring him his lunch. And they would say to him, why can't you eat with us? Because it was kosher. And he would say, I have a bad stomach. I have to have certain food. My mother had a restaurant at the Brooklyn Navy Yard. She used to have this big thing, and she would make, I wasn't bored yet, and she used to make soup. And one day she found a pair of socks in there. One of my brothers thought he was cute.
Oh my gosh.
They were men of the streets. They were, you don't find men like that anymore.
So the war ended, or I should say Ralph came home.
The war was not over.
The war was not over yet. You were still working at, you said Woolworths you were working at the time?
I was working in the Bronx in a button factory where they put the buttons and you bought them like 6 of them, you know. But I worked in the office.
Okay.
And
that's when he came home?
no, he came home, let me think. Yeah, he must have, because I didn't go to work in Bloomingdale's yet. That's another story. And he came home and we had no place to live.
And you were not
Housing
yet married?
was
You weren't
terrible.
married just yet?
We got married
Oh, you got married. Okay. So when did you get married?
in 1945, March 17th, St. Patrick's Day.
On St. Patrick's Day.
You had to keep the shades down, the war was on. You had to be out of there by midnight. And I don't remember him, but it was a very, very old rabbi, and my brothers told me he had married them, and they did it for the sake of my mother.
Wow.
And somebody said to me it was the saddest wedding they ever went to. It was only his mother. I had no parents. The war was on, but we got married.
So is it, when you say you had to pull the blind shut, was it because during the war?
Blackout, because you didn't know if a plane would come on.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So you finally got married. Where'd you move to after that?
So we went to live with his mother. That meant she had to come into this little room, sleep on the cot, and we had to sleep in this double bed. It had no furniture. It had a closet. We had to put everything in that. I don't know. Anyway, and she didn't know how to cook. So I would come home from work, and I would cook. One day, I went out and bought lamb chops, and I came home, and she said, I made them. I said, oh, good. She boiled them. There's no way I was going to eat that. I mean, I'm a good eater, but I draw the line. We lived there about a year, and then my brother Nat, he was the second one down, said, you know, Ruth, I live in a house with a mother-in-law and 2 sons. You have to have a place of your own. You've had nothing in your life. I'm going to find you an apartment. There was no housing, but he did. On a top floor, and that's where Bruce was born.
Got it. That's where you were describing the 5-story walk-up.
And then everybody was applying for city housing.
Because now we're in the post-war time period, right?
And I wanted so desperately to have an elevator or heat. And this black woman came. She was very nice. She says, I have to tell you something. You have a place to live. Other people don't. I said, you're right. Are you cold? I don't get heat. That's nothing. Nobody else does. Did you walk up the 6 flights? Did you carry a fat baby with potatoes, onions, milk? And she said, no. I said, I did. Look at me. If I'm 100 pounds, it's a lot. Tell you what, if you're going to refuse me, I want your name and where you work. She said, why? Because if I have a heart attack, I want you to be sued. Stamped it, and I got it.
So she was the person who was going to give you the approval or not for the...
And I got into city housing.
And you got into city housing. So that was a big deal.
An elevator.
Wow.
And we were all moving in on the same day, all by the women I got friendly with. It took hours.
What year was this?
That had to be 1950.
And do you remember what area of New York was that, was the city housing?
In the Bronx.
In the Bronx, okay.
Allerton Avenue.
And so you didn't have heat before?
So I used to wrap Bruce and me up in the kitchen and put on the oven. How we didn't get killed, I don't know. I let the oven go on and everything, and I kept him wrapped up in blankets. And it was a togetherness constantly, 24/7.
But so in the city housing, you finally had heating. So that was a big difference.
Very cheap rent, $35 a month it started. It eventually went to $75 a month. They kept raising it. But I became very friendly with a group of women. And we had coffee together. We chipped in money, and we would go into New York City and see a show together, or we'd go to a famous jazz place. 52nd Street was all jazz. And there was a man named Barry Gray who was on radio. Today they call it a disc jockey. He would talk with him. And one day we decided to go to the place that he worked at. And he was up behind a glass wall, and he was spinning records, or I don't know. And my girlfriend Edna, who rest in peace, stunning redhead, went up there and said to him, "We have no way to get home. We don't have enough money for a limo." He said, "You're a bunch of characters. My limo's downstairs. You get home."
He sent you back in the limo. That's amazing.
We were about 5 women.
Wow.
We had so much fun.
Was that city housing, the 5 women you were friends with, and just generally the other neighbors, was it all similar backgrounds, similar cultural backgrounds?
Absolutely. Every man worked 2 jobs, including weekends. Every man. The women did not work. I was the first one that went to work.
Really? So can you describe what was that like? What was that transition?
Well, it was bad because I put the key around Lauria's neck. I hated to go. She was about 7 and Bruce was about 11. But we needed the money. And one day I came home and some of the women were sitting on a bench in front, and I heard one say, "She's the one puts the key around the child's neck."
And why did you put the key around her neck? So she wouldn't lose it?
So she could come home and get in. It took about 2 or 3 years. And one day I'm coming home, and they're lined up on the bench, and one of them gets up, comes over to me, says, "How can I get a job? You dress so well." I said, "Go down and apply." And that's another story. You know why I went to work there? No. I worked before that at other things, but it brought me home before they got home from school.
Got it. You're talking about Bloomingdale's now, right?
My girlfriend, Claire, may she rest in peace, she said, "I have to go into the city. I'm going for an interview in an office." I said, "You know, I'll take the ride with you." It was pouring. I had a navy blue double-breasted raincoat, very old. And the rain came through, turned my clothes blue, but I never took it off. And I'm walking around, and everybody said, "Where's Bloomingdale's?" I said, "3rd Avenue, Lexington." "How come you're not going to Auerbach's or Klein's?" "I don't know, I like Bloomingdale's." "But Jewish people don't go to Bloomingdale's." I never heard of that. I said, "What are you talking about?" So I did go, and I'm walking around there. I said, "Ruth, I wonder if you have it. Apply for a job." His name was Lester Grabetz. He eventually became vice president. And he interviewed me, and I said, "I got to tell you something."
By the way, was this the same day that you just went down with your friend? You ended up going in and applying?
She's getting interviewed, didn't get the job. And I said, "I'm in from the rain, and it's warm in here. I don't know if I really want to work. I have little children at home." He was so nice. Brilliant man. He said, "But you're perfect." I said, "For what?" "There's a man, different than you. He's a wasp. Tall, white hair, very narrow. I don't think he knows what a Jew is." But he said he could use somebody in the office. His area is very successful. He's making a lot of money for Bloomingdale. All right. I go, "Well, it's white hair, this wide." And I sit down, and I said, "Before you interview me, there's a limit of time." He said,
You,
"What?"
as the interviewee, tells him
He
as
said,
the interviewer.
"What do you mean?" I said, "I have children at home. I'd like to be home." I said, "So if you're going to ask me if I had measles, chickenpox, or they had it, yes, everything. So that's over with. What else do you want to know?" He said, "Can you work every day?" I said, "No."
So he was in love with you immediately. He was
said-
ready to hire you right away.
I didn't know it though. That's when he said, "How many days can you work?" I said, "I tell you what," I said, "I'll work part-time 4 days. but I have to be out of here by 2 o'clock. He said, you're making it very difficult. I said, I know, I'm so sorry. I'll go back down and tell Mr. Grabetz, you know. So I went down and the phone rang. And I said, I know it's going to be here. Tell him I'm sorry I took up his time. He says, no, he wants you. Give her what she wants. She's very interesting.
So you made a very impressive first impression on this gentleman.
I worked there 26 years.
26 years.
It was the best job I ever had in my life. Carl, I went to parties. Queen Elizabeth, the Duke, Frank Sinatra, you wouldn't know, Mel Torme, Paul Newman. I went to all these parties, and after a while I said, I don't have enough clothes to look different. So I would put a scarf around, I'd put a scarf around here. Everybody thought I was dressed elegantly.
Wow.
To top of the sixes, I went to Waldorf.
And this was all because you were working at Bloomingdale's?
The plaza,
Wow.
because the vice presidents and the chairman felt I was very elegant, well-dressed, but the other women in their office resented it. They were not invited. I don't care anymore. I'm taking what I can. I went through my time. And
Good
then
for
I would
you.
say, can I bring my husband? But then we opened the Bloomingdale's in Connecticut. Yes. And they threw a big party, and I knew Paul Newman was coming. I said to my boss, please, I want Ralph to be him. And they did. And they became friends. And he said to Paul Newman, where do you buy your wife her jewelry? And he mentioned a place in, I think, Norwalk, I'm not sure. And that's where all my jewelry came from after that. Ralph would only buy there.
Wait. Ralph was talking to Paul Newman at the party and got the name? No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, no, we were an outgoing couple.
So you were the first mother of that group to start working, but then quickly the others started working. So what was that time period like for you as a working woman and a working mother?
Well, I was sort of, they didn't pay attention to me after that, who was, you know, until they saw me coming with a new outfit or something. And little by little, some of the women did go to work. Some of them were lazy and they didn't. When it was 20 years, I said, Ralph, we're out of here. We could do better. We moved to New Rochelle.
So you moved to the suburbs.
The reason being, my dearest, dearest friends were on the 4th floor. I was on the 8th. And we would have wild, wild parties.
Really?
Wild.
What years was this?
Yeah, I think it was 1970. I started to work there, live there. And the couple on the 4th floor, he was friends with Ralph since they were 16.
Oh, wow, okay. So from the Bronx?
Dottie, Lucille Ball's hair, red, big green eyes. But she so desperately wanted to be Jewish because she grew up in a Jewish neighborhood. So she actually went and got converted.
No kidding.
I don't know if I would have gone through it. You have to be dipped in water, and after that, it was very tough because she'd say, you don't know how to make that? What kind of Jew are you? You don't know this? It was terrible. And then my second friend did it, converted.
No kidding, wow. So it sounds like at each location that you all lived, you did find the Jewish community and that was your big social circle.
And then I moved to New Rochelle, I told you. And I continued working, but now I took the railroad. No more subway. But because that first doctor I met said, don't drive, walk. Walk everywhere. I don't care what the weather is. So I would get off at 42nd Street, rain, sleet, snow, and I walked to 60th.
You always walked?
Always walked. Walked back.
And that was because it was healthy and you wanted to stay healthy? Or?
I don't know if it was healthy. He just said, do it, and I loved him. One day he said to me, just so elegantly, You find anything wrong with me? Oh my God. Why do people do that to me? Of course I'm going to find something wrong. So I said, you know, we're friends, Marvin. What do you find wrong? I said, well, under the desk I see you don't wear high socks. You wear long. I see your leg. I don't really want to look at your leg. He looked at it. Really? I said, really? He never wore short socks again.
So people look to you for fashion advice.
So one day I'm sitting waiting my turn to get in to see him, and Billy Joel was sitting opposite me
Wait, where was this?
in my doctor's office.
Billy Joel was sitting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I said to him, you know, you look just like Billy Joel. He said, yeah. I said, you know why? He said, because you are. And he said, you're right. You're right.
You talked me through, you moved to the city housing, to New Rochelle. You worked for 27 years.
26.
26 years at Bloomingdale's. Your husband, what did he do between the time from the war up until he started his business in the 70s? What did he do in between that time? Right?
He worked for stationary people. As a matter of fact, the people who owned it were the Guardado brothers or something, mafia. They owned all of Connecticut, and they loved him. And he said, I can't, they'll won't let me buy anything to run my own business. There's other places. They can't kill you because it'll be too noticeable. Do it. He said, you don't know when I'm starting. I said, I don't care. If they find out, sure enough they did, and they stopped the famous office furniture. They said, don't ever sell to him.
Really? So they interfered in your husband's business?
So he found another one, just as good.
Got it.
I said, we mustn't be scared.
Wow.
No.
So do you mind if I transition now to a bit about how you've maintained your longevity and your
That I don't know.
and your
If I
energy?
knew it, I'd be a multimillionaire. I could sell it. I have no idea. Every doctor says there's no answer.
Well, what has surprised you the most about aging?
That you get tired more quickly, and you fall. You walk with a walker outdoors, not here, but because you shouldn't fall. Unfortunately, 6 weeks in the hospital to learn how to walk. I still have a broken shoulder. I can go only over this high. I lost this much off my
Femur bone?
the what do you call this? The whole bone. The hip. I lost this much. It's floating around my body.
Oh, wow.
And I learned that bad weather, you do feel it, you do. I learned that walking outdoors, I will never be brave enough again to walk without a walker. Here I will. And I learned that there are some things that you just can't do. So I went to the seniors. Matter of fact, that day that I fell, I did yoga and walked a mile.
You did yoga?
That day, walked, I was 80 or 82 or something. No, when I fell, I was 96. I think 96.
So 3 years ago?
3 years ago, right.
96.
And 6 weeks in the hospital. But I walked, and I'm here.
Yeah.
Why? I don't know. And I didn't learn to drive till I was 60, so I walked. Maybe that's the answer. I don't know. I don't think it's food because I eat everything. I don't care.
You just eat what you enjoy.
And I don't care if they say it's no good. I don't care. I miss getting into the city. I miss walking Fifth Avenue. I miss seeing the Christmas tree. I miss going to St. Patrick's Cathedral. Yes, these are the downsides. And I miss having to talk to somebody. That 24 hours a day, I walk around this place and I find myself humming or talking to myself. It's not healthy.
So would you say that that is perhaps one of the the tougher parts of aging?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have like somebody to converse with. And look, I don't say you have to be happy. Crazy people are happy all the time. But you should be contented. And I would say that the way I live, I have contentment.
That's beautiful.
I have to make the best of it. We all do.
What habits or mindsets or routines have helped you stay grounded throughout your life?
I would say that first was my husband. The biggest, greatest gift I ever got in my life. And then my children. Bruce and Lori are very, very special people. My grandchildren, my great-grandchildren.
Your great-grandchildren? You have great-grandchildren?
6.
Wow.
The oldest just turned 17 today.
Wow.
You love your children first. Then you have to share it with your grandchildren. By then, you're sharing it with your great-grand. The love is not the same as your own, that you gave birth to, but it's there.
It's amazing. To witness so many generations of your family,
Yeah.
that's unbelievable.
That's why I sit with the ladies and we play Mahjong because I said, let's play Mahjong.
You're a Mahjong player?
I didn't know how. So she said to me, who's going to come? Do you know how to play? I said, no, but somebody must know how. Now it's up to 35 women.
Wow.
I go on a lot of trips with them that I can manage. Piedmont, I don't know if you know what Piedmont is.
I do, yeah.
Oh, like they went into the city for Christmas. I don't think that's for me. I used to take Ralph and it wasn't welcome. And so some things I do have to turn down, which is a little sad for me because I'm a goer. But what can I do? If they're going to go out to eat and it's a place that I can get to, yes. I will say this. I now have an aide. Sometimes she comes, sometimes she doesn't. But she comes Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday from 10:30 to 2. And I tell her, don't do anything. We're getting out. Whether we go for coffee, whether we go someplace.
Get out of the house.
Get out of the house. She's very good, and I like her very, very much.
That's great.
And we'll see how it works out.
What do you wish more people understood about getting older?
That there are certain things we can't do, and we are very repetitive. We do repeat ourselves. The reason being, we don't have contact with people all day, so we don't have something to add. So all the old things come forward. I'm sure it's annoying. I'm sure it's bothersome. And you know what? Like Rhett Butler said in Gone with the Wind, personally, I don't give a damn.
So you have a very strong sense of humor.
Yes.
Do you feel like that?
My husband was like that too.
Was he really?
Yeah.
And how important do you feel having a sense of humor is to life in general, but particularly to aging?
Absolutely the most important. If you can't, look, one day we're playing Mahjong and this one woman said, oh, I didn't get Mahjong. I wish I should have done that. I could have. I said, you know, if the queen had balls, she'd be king. Let's end the whole thing.
So are you, I don't know if class clown is the right term, but in your friend group, are you the funny one?
I'm friendly with nobody over 72. Most of the dearest friends turned 70 this past month.
Most of your closest friends just turned 70.
Yeah.
Wow. So do you find that it's important to have younger friends? Does that help keep you young?
Yes, because the older ones, they don't have my mindset and they don't know what I'm talking about.
In the century that you've lived, what has changed the most?
Patriotism. It's not that rah, rah, rah anymore. And
how important has that change been? So that rah, rah, rah that you're describing, how important was that during that time?
At that time, as a young teenager, I found it very exciting. It was an exciting time. There's not much that excites me anymore.
So when you look back, what makes you the most proudest of your life?
But I married Ralph. I'm proud that I made it, in spite of everything. So I may not be as normal, but I made it. And I don't think I'm going to go soon. I have a feeling that there's still some life left.
It's beautiful.
I would like very much to live to see my son turn 80. I would like to see that. And then, of course, I know the next thing. Oh, then maybe my daughter-in-law should turn 80. And then Laurie should turn 80. But Laurie's only going to be 74. That means, how could 6 more years? Lyle, I can't do 6 more. No, I can't.
What were the key turning points that shaped your life the most? I know we've heard a few of them, but what would you say were the key turning points
Ralph.
in your life? Meeting Ralph.
Having my children. All my other jobs didn't matter. Bloomingdale's did. When I was told that I'm the fashionista of the 7th floor, where the CEO was, I knew I made it.
What advice do you think young people need to hear today?
To have the niceties of life. Have a little sympathy, a little empathy. One brother said to me, just go on with it. Rise above it, get a life. And one day he called me that his wife was going through it. And he said, any advice? I said, yeah, get on with it, get a life. I know, because my son told me, that people have lives and they can't be necessarily bothered with me or invite me or call me or see me. It's very hard for me to understand it because Ralph and I didn't feel that way. If we had a friend that was a widow, we took them out. Sometimes we take them out in a group, sometimes, but we always took them out. We knew they were alive and they were alone. That doesn't exist anymore. They don't care. My son is right. They have lives.
No, I think that's really important, to empathize with people.
Please.
And it sounds like what you're describing you and your husband would do is you were aware and thoughtful about what others were going through, but then you also put out that hand to help, right?
Now, they just threw a surprise 100th birthday for me. You know about it.
No, I don't know about this.
Oh, this one they really put over. My oldest firstborn grandson, 51, came in from where he lives in the Cayman Islands. And he told me he came in to see me, and he's got a new girl, and she's only 30, he's 51, but he loves her. So I thought that's why he came. And he said, we're going to go to the Red Hat to eat. And as he drove, I said, PJ, you forgot Irvington. You're driving to the senior center. That's not the Red Hat. I know what I'm doing. I said, no, you don't, PJ. He said, we pull up and I see a big crowd. I said, I think I know some of those people. He said, Grandma, get out of the car. And that's when I knew. 92 people.
Wow. That's so beautiful. So what did it feel like to see those 92 people show up for you? Were they from different stages of your life, or were they mostly
Well, there
family?
was the great-grandchildren, the grandchildren, and then there was no old friends. They're gone. And my family, one nephew who lives in Ardsley. And, we're all, years ago you were in a neighborhood. Today it's not a neighborhood.
Yeah.
You go to college, that's where you end up. It's different.
Yeah.
I remember that I came from a great family. They were rowdy, they liked to, you don't see that anymore. My friend Dottie and I, we threw crazy parties. We threw a party for a clown doll made out of porcelain.
You threw a party for a clown doll made out of porcelain?
That was given, my dear friend Dottie gave it to her sister who loved porcelain doll. This was a clown. We were sitting in the Rytown Hilton, And somebody said, we got to give it a name. I said, why don't we all throw it into a thing? And we'll picked out the name, and it said Raphael. I said, Ralph, did you throw that in? He left it on top. It was picked. I said, it's a girl. So then I said, well, when she's 13, we'll throw a bas mitzvah for her. My girlfriend Dottie said, you know, clowns turn 13 in 6 months. I'm looking around, oh my God, what did I get into? So I invited them, a big crowd, sent out invitations.
Really?
For the clown. Bought a big red velvet pillow, put the clown there, dressed her up, hired a bartender. This was all in New Rochelle. And then I had to hire a rabbi. I don't know any rabbi. But there was a man in the building, very religious, Ralph Doom, and he said to him, could you come in for a minute, say a blessing? He said, but who? He said, that's a doll. Say a blessing. The bartender was all of 20 years old. He said, weirdest people of the world. They are weird. Are they normal? These are the kind of parties we had.
But you had fun.
Fun. And then my girlfriend Dottie said, look, you go to Atlantic City, you don't gamble, but you walk the boardwalk. Ralph, he's a very good gin rummy. No, blackjack. Personally, I think he counted the cards. But he was very good at it. And she said, all you do is walk back and forth, and you should come to Vegas. I said, no. All right. Fell in love.
Really?
Fell in love with Vegas.
What about it?
The shows, the glamour. You don't see any poverty. And then we would go to Vegas 8 or 9 times a year. We were impossible.
Wow. What era was this? What that you were going to Vegas 8 or 9 times a year? Was this the 90s? The 80s?
It had to be the 90s and the 80s.
So was this the Rat Pack time?
They were the best. And I got invited to a lot of parties. I'll tell you one. If you go to the spa, they come in and you say, hi, you were great last night.
What do you mean? Who comes in?
In the hotel.
Really?
You go to the spa.
And the acts would come into the spa?
Well, the men or women that worked in the band. One time this singer, Fran Jeffries, she was appearing in the lounge, and we went to see her, and she was married, you wouldn't know, anyway, she's on set. Now the cocktail, it's big as this room, and she's in this gorgeous pants outfit, and my husband says, with that body, she should be in a dress or a gown. And happens the next day, I'm in the spa, I'm reading a book. I had showered and gone into the sauna, and she walks in. I said, you were fantastic last night. Oh, she says, thank you. I said, problem? What's the problem? You hid your body, you have a great figure. Magnificent. Oh, okay. I said, where did you marry to Dick Haymes? Oh, she says, you know all about me. I said, I like pop culture. I said, we'll come and see you tonight. So I came with Dottie and Al. She's in this low-cut red gown, slid up there, and she goes like this to me. She gets through with her number, comes down and sits on Al's lap. Now, Al is very shy. She thinks he's my husband. And Al is like, huh. So sat on Ralph's lap, and he told her, now you look like something. So the next day, I knew she'd be in the spa. She's there. She opens up her robe. She's naked. What do you think, Ruth? Of what? These are new.
Oh, my God.
I think, great. She said, do you see his scars? No. He's terrific. He's in California. I said, oh, okay. Yeah.
the last thing I want to do, if you don't mind, I just want to ask maybe like 5 questions just for your quick, what comes to mind first? What's a small joy that you never get tired of?
Laughing.
And sense of humor. What was your favorite decade and why?
The years I worked in Bloomingdale's.
A piece of advice that someone gave you that you never forgot.
Don't ever drive, walk.
And that was your doctor. The funniest or most mischievous thing you ever did?
There were too many, like throwing a party for a clown. We were in Bermuda, and the travel agency desk was empty. Ralph got behind it. Anybody came in, he said, "I'll advise you where to go." He didn't know Bermuda. We were hysterical.
Oh my God, that sounds hysterical.
We laughed all the time. I don't laugh anymore.
One thing people today worry too much about?
Everything. Loosen up. Be nicer to people and you'll loosen up.
One thing you wish everyone valued more?
Their marriage, their children, friends, life.
If you could relive one day, not to change it, but just to feel that day again, which day would it be?
Day I met Ralph. Definitely.
This has been an amazing interview. Thank you so much for your time.
I'm going to thank you.
I really
because I had
do.
somebody to talk to today. It's a very lonely life. It's not for me.
Well, I just want to say thank you so much to Ruth. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
It's been such a pleasure.
I loved it because I spent a wonderful afternoon. Thank you.
Sincerely appreciate you. I hope you enjoyed listening to Ruth's story. She's 99 years old, turning 100 in 2 weeks. And she lives on her own.
And I'm with this handsome young man. I'm still young enough to recognize good-looking men.
Well, thank you so much. I
Thank you.
sincerely appreciate it. Thank you so much. Please be sure to like and subscribe to follow along for more.